My name is Michael Spasoff, and I'm the Artistic Administrator and Chorusmaster here at Edmonton Opera. And our topic today is Tchaikovsky's amazing opera, Eugene Onegin. No, it's interesting. It is a very sort of episodic story. Actually, both the first two acts are out at the sort of near the country estate of where Tatiana grows up, right, where she lives with her mother and her sister. And actually, each of the acts is sort of centered on a particular character also. So Act 1 is really centered on Tatiana. Act 2 is really centered on Lenski. And Act 3 is really centered on Onegin, even although all the other characters are sort of included in different acts. Another interesting thing about each of the acts is how the chorus changes roles through each of the acts. Because almost to mirror Tatiana's, rise in station through the opera. In the first act, they're peasants. In the second act, they're sort of country gentry, which was sort of the closest thing 19th century Russia probably had to a middle class. And then in the third act, we're in high society, where Tatiana is now married into, and that they're the sort of the uber wealthy people in the capital, St. Petersburg. We've moved away from the country, and now we're in the center of it all. And that's also mirrored in the different dances that are played throughout the opera. Yeah, dance is incredibly important in Onegin, and it's interesting. Tchaikovsky himself thought of himself as an opera composer, but we remember him now as one of the great ballet composers, of Nutcracker and Swan Lake and Sleeping Beauty. But even in his operas, and especially in this one, dance plays an incredibly important role in the action. There's 5 dances in the opera, and the first one is in Act 1. It's the peasant dance. And this is interesting because it's sort of, in this opera that's all about these people making these tragic choices in their love lives and making all these mistakes and being sad. It's actually a very happy story about 2 people meeting, 2 lovers meeting out in the woods, basically. And it's so happy and joyful, and it's sort of a foil to everything else that goes on in the opera. The one dance that really drives the plot forward is in Act 2, which is the big waltz, which is this incredible waltz scene, and that's sort of the celebration of Tatiana's name day. And the reason the dance is important is because the main way you would flirt back then was by asking people to dance and dancing with them. And it was in this society that was still pretty restrictive in terms of interaction between the sexes. Being able to dance was your main point of contact for a guy and a girl to flirt. So the fact that Onegin persistently keeps asking Olga to dance, who's the girlfriend of his best friend Lenski, is pretty shocking behavior, and that's what eventually sets up Lenski's outrage that makes him challenge Onegin to a duel, which leads to the tragic situation of Onegin having killed his best friend, kind of without ever really wanting to. And then in Act 3, the entire atmosphere of St. Petersburg is conjured right away by the Polonaise that begins Act 3. It's very famous music. And all of a sudden, as soon as you hear that music and that type of dancing that was considered very fancy and sort of the court, we're in a different world. Tatiana's in a different world. She's not in Kansas anymore. She's not out in the boonies in Russia. She's now married to one of the most wealthy people in St. Petersburg. And Tchaikovsky's very alive to these kind of social situations through the music, and he shows them all through the music in big ways through the different dances that he chooses to place at various points in the opera. It's incredibly realistic in a lot of ways. It's not, Tchaikovsky's, even though he writes this incredibly romantic music and it's heart-achingly beautiful and all of that, but he's not, in a lot of ways, he's not trying to overblow anything. He's really trying to just treat normal human emotions of real people exactly as they are. And so the music isn't trying to exaggerate anything. It's just trying to give you a window into their hearts. But absolutely, it's, you know, really at the end of the opera, all that happens is they meet and have a conversation, and it does change their lives, but nothing really happens. It's them relating to each other and dealing with all their many, many intense feelings that are, you know, justify a 20-minute scene.